You've no doubt heard the theory. A theory so absurd that upon first hearing it, you naturally dismissed it as rubbish. The theory that reptilian aliens are on Earth, living among us, hiding behind a human facade and controlling our reality. That's certainly a bold theory, and one that should not be readily accepted. But it's a theory that, if found to be true, will have the power to change mankind's understanding of reality forever. A theory that, if left unexplored, could spell a fate for humanity far worse than one could imagine. So neither should it be readily dismissed. Information on the subject is scarce, and of course it would be, even if the theory were true. If reptilian aliens were in control of our world, you can bet they would have the resources necessary to keep their existence hidden. And if our politicians, military, and intelligence agencies were infiltrated, as well as those who write our history, religion, law, science, and education, those who make our movies, write our music, and tell us the news, if they were all working together, well, that's just absurd, as I said. This video is a collection of resources on the subject that have been compiled in such a way as to provide a complete, coherent story. Perhaps it has the power to change your understanding of reality.
A lady called Arizona Wilder, who was brought up and mind-controlled from almost the time that she was born to eventually, as she did, conduct satanic rituals at the highest level of the satanic ritual network, involving some of the most famous people on the planet.
These people that are in the organization, and they have something called the Grand Druid Council or the Octagon, they're called the Illuminati. The Illuminati are actually run by these 13 bloodlines, which are all of the royal families in Europe and in England.
A global web of secret societies that control the planet today, and they come from a series of interbreeding bloodlines which you can trace back to the ancient Middle and Near East thousands and thousands of years ago. And the staggering truth is that these interbreeding bloodlines under different names have increasingly controlled planet Earth from that time to this, never more so than today.
They are, in fact, not human. They take human shape. They are reptilians. I was made to learn through a certain aspect of the organization the history of what was the Illuminati on this planet. And what I learned was that the Aryans originally were from Mars, and the reptilians came to that planet to rule, and they wanted to mix, so they said, with that race, and they became the overlords. And the Martians or Aryans were seeking to escape from it. They then went to Earth and established culture here on Earth approximately 6,000 years ago. And at that point in time, they were doing well, and they were mixing with the indigenous population of this Earth. And then about 4,000 years ago, the reptilians arrived here and again began to take over. And they instilled themselves in different places underground in the Earth, and part of them, the ruling part, took over and became involved in the politics and in the religion and started controlling through these means at that point in time, and using the gods and deities that were believed in on this planet, started infiltrating into that and becoming that. And blood rituals started happening. And since that time, that is the way that it has been.
Quang Binh Province, Vietnam, 1991. Logger Ho Khan discovers a mysterious entrance to a hidden mountain cave. It is the largest underground chamber on the planet.
It's not just a cave. It's an actual world. Inside this cave, it's 40 stories high. There's actually an ancient forest. It's got flowing water. Inside the cave is an entire growing ecosystem. And it's so deep that it looks like it's an entrance to a whole other reality.
But according to area residents, what's most notable about Sondung Cave are the strange creatures that are believed to dwell within it.
Local residents described seeing reptilian-type humanoid beings emerging from the Sondung Cave, and they believe that they actually live deep inside this cave. What's fascinating about this is that these reptilian-type humanoid beings are similar to the seraphim or the winged serpents in Kabbalistic tradition. The seraphim are said to have gone and lived in the inner earth.
There have been reports that during the Vietnam War in the 1970s, U.S. soldiers encountered what they described as upright lizards inhabiting caves.
Traditions about Nagas are very common in the Buddhist countries of Asia. In many places, the Naga concept has merged with local traditions of great and wise serpents. In Tibet, the Naga was said to guard priceless treasures. They are also believed, according to some legends, to inhabit massive hollow underground caverns. In China, the Naga was often equated with the dragon. In Thailand and Java, the Naga is a wealthy underworld deity. In Laos, they are considered seafaring or water serpents. In a Cambodian legend, the Naga were a noble race of serpent people who possessed a large empire in the Pacific Ocean region. The Naga king's daughter married a man, and from their hybrid union sprang the Cambodian people. One will often find Cambodians still say that they are born from the Naga. A tribal legend from northeast India claims that their ancestors emerged from a subterranean land inside the earth in ancient times, and that the underworld is still inhabited by this advanced Naga race. They also claim that they harbor a disdain for human beings whom they are said to abduct, torture, interbreed with, and even eat. In Hindu mythology, the Naga legends speak of a serpent race that live underground and are described as children of gods who got married with human kings and queens and bore them children. In Chinese legends, dragons are not the frightening flying beasts that they are portrayed today, but wise creatures that would be mentors of kings and creators of kingdoms. Many Tibetans are mentioned to have entered the caves of the Nagas, which expand for miles beneath the mountains of Asia.
Today historically, we know that the great temples of Angkor, Angkor Thom and Angkor Wat of Cambodia were built by the Naga descendants. These Nagas went from India and they interbred with the indigenous people there and established a kingdom. You've always heard of Naga Lokas existing beneath the underground, the netherworld. There's a whole society down there, not just of snakes, human beings who belong to the snake clan who are known as the Nagas, who played a very, very important role in shaping the consciousness of this nation and literally every other culture, actually. Nagas were always matriarchal families, they were ruled by queens and not by kings. All the goddesses anywhere in the world, the Middle Eastern ones, the North African ones, the Mesopotamian ones, the Asian ones, Southeast Asian ones, and Central European ones.
The accounts of reptilian beings existing in underground caverns can be found all across the globe, even on the other side of the world, in Cusco, Peru.
Throughout Peru, there are many, many stories of a tunnel system that has something to do with serpent deities, which they call the Amaru. The Peruvian authorities themselves looked for all of the entrances they could around Cusco, and they sealed them up. And this is a well-known story within Peruvian history.
There have been many reports from around the world of human-like reptilians.
One of the oldest and most widespread symbols, snakes, dragons, and serpents in general, were regularly regarded as guardians of the underworld. They lived in cracks and holes in the ground. The Gorgons of Greek myth were snake women hybrids. Nagas were human-headed snakes. In Nordic myth, evil was symbolized by the serpent, or more specifically a dragon. In ancient Slavic paganism, Velos presided over the underworld, almost always portrayed as a serpent or dragon. The idea of snake people living below the earth was very prominent in Native American myth. They all seemed to subscribe to subterranean inhabitants. Mictlan is the underworld of Aztec mythology. and the Sioux Indians told of 3 brothers transformed into rattlesnakes, which lived below the surface permanently, helping and guiding their human relatives. The Hopi people told of a young man who ventured into the underworld and married a snake princess, and claimed that they themselves emerged from the inner earth below the Grand Canyon. The Pomo people have a legend of a woman who married a rattlesnake prince and gave birth to 4 snake children who freely moved between the 2 worlds of their parents. In the summer and fall of 1933, a Los Angeles mining engineer named G. Warren Shufeldt was surveying the LA area for deposits of oil, gold, and other valuable materials using his new invention called a radio X-ray. Shufeldt's instruments revealed what seemed to be a pattern of tunnels leading from what is now the public library in the heart of downtown to the top of Mount Washington, and then to Pasadena in the north. What he had stumbled upon appeared to be a well-planned underground labyrinth. Some of the tunnels of the underground city ran west for 20 miles under the Santa Monica Bay, connected by a series of additional tunnels to the ocean where the ebb and flow of seawater forced air into the labyrinth, which allegedly provided fresh air and ventilation. Shufeldt began to research the history of the area, and his quest to understand his findings led him to Chief Greenleaf, a Hopi Indian at a medicine lodge in Arizona, who told him about the legend of a lost civilization belonging to an advanced race of lizard people. Several newspaper articles featured updates on the project. The lizard people had built a complex maze of underground tunnels and antechambers using advanced chemicals to ease their process. Inside this vast network of tunnels and catacombs were 16 treasure rooms, each allegedly containing enormous gold tablets with perfect corners, sides, and ends. According to Shufeldt, the lizard people kept their secrets in a key room near the 2nd Street Tunnel. This underground room contained 37 4-foot-long golden tablets that recorded the history of the ancient Mayans and the origin of the human race. As a result of the information he received from Chief Little Greenleaf, Shufeldt believed that the underground complex he had discovered was one of 13 built all over the Southwest. But inexplicable tunnels have been unearthed below many cities on all continents all around the world.
I'm Phil Schneider. I spent 17 years in black budget programs. I'm government geologist, a structural engineer with aerospace applications. All information dealing with alien reproduced technology or alien reproduced vehicles or any other kinds of things well hidden from the American public. Right now, there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States. There's 1,477 of them worldwide. Each one has an average cost of $17 to $19 billion. My colleague, Al Bielek, has actually been on some of the high-speed railways, the Magneto-Leviton trains that connect all the deep underground military bases within the United States. He's been on a Mach 2 train, floats off with a single rail at a 3/4 of an inch off the rail, and is what you'd call high-tech. We have nothing like this on the surface. The public basically has been totally lied to. We're considered stupid or even moronic. The alien thing is more than just what I'd call a non-visible threat. Half of the 131 deep underground military bases are basic cities for them.
The oldest recorded history comes from ancient Sumerian texts, and that's where we're first introduced to the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are believed to be 7 deities, also referred to as the 7 gods who decree. Their purpose was to determine the fate of mankind, and their stories mirror some that we find in Greek mythology. And like the Greek gods, the Anunnaki dwell in the heavens, but also interact with people and influence events here on Earth. There is an ancient Zulu legend about 2 brothers named Wawani and Mpanku, who are from an alien race with scaly skin. The Sumerians call these brothers Enki and Enlil, who are also rulers of the Anunnaki. This race of reptilians primarily lives underground, but a few of them live among us as well. The surface-dwelling beings are here to make sure humanity stays compliant with and unaware of their plan. They're involved in the highest levels of government, business, and technology. They're monarchs, politicians, and bankers. They own and operate major media companies.
Mark, are the allegations true that you're secretly a lizard? I'm gonna have to go with no on that. I am not a lizard.
They influence every aspect of human life. They are the Illuminati.
the Aryans originally were from Mars. They then went to Earth approximately 6,000 years ago, and then about 4,000 years ago, the reptilians arrived here and again began to take over.
The Scythians are the common ancestors of the Indo-European people. The word Indo-European describes a language family spoken over the greater part of Europe and Asia as far as northern India. It implies that a tribe of people, the Proto-Indo-Europeans, diffused in the past from the Black Sea area or Anatolia, the original tribe of people that spread in antiquity into Europe to the west and into India to the east. The oldest branch of Indo-European languages were the Anatolian languages, the geographic area around the Black Sea, including the Caucasus Mountains, which is modern-day Turkey, and Armenia, once part of the Hittite Empire. Pliny the Elder's natural history derives the name of the Caucasus from the Scythian Kroi Kausis, meaning ice shining white with snow. The Caucasus is where we get the term Caucasian from. In a biblical context, it's where Noah was said to have settled after the floodwaters receded. Also part of the group known as Indo-Europeans, the Massagetæ, part of the wider Scythian culture. Procopius of Caesarea was the principal Byzantine historian of the 6th century, and in his writings called History of the Wars, the Buildings, and the Secret History, states that, quote, the Massagetæ, whom they now call Huns. Roman historians also considered the Alans to be the former Massagetæ. The 4th century Roman historian Ammianus Martialis wrote that the Alans were tall, blonde, and, quote, nearly all of the Alani are men of great stature and beauty. Their hair is somewhat yellow, their eyes are terribly fierce. According to the Jewish historian Josephus, the Alans were Scythians. When we look up the Alans, we find that the name Alan is an Iranian dialectical form of Aryan, a term no longer used in any university after World War II. Yet the word Aryan is etched in stone thousands of years ago in places like the Behistun inscription in Iran and is synonymous with the modern term Indo-European. The Alans, Massagetæ, the Hittites of Anatolia, the Suebi, who became the modern Swedes and occupied southern Germany in what is now called Swabia, and the Scythians were all Aryan tribes that shared Indo-European or Aryan ancestry. In Histories, Herodotus describes the Budini of Scythia as red-haired and gray-eyed. In the 5th century BC, Greek physician Hippocrates argued that the Scythians were light-skinned. The 2nd century BC Han Chinese envoy Zhang Qian described the Saka, another name for the ethnicity known as the Scythians, as having yellow hair and blue eyes. Pliny the Elder characterizes the Saka, Scythians, or Tocharians as red-haired, blue-eyed, and unusually tall, which is supported by the 4,000-year-old 6'6" tall Caucasian mummies found in China. The 4th century bishop Gregory of Nyssa wrote that the Scythians were fair-skinned and blonde-haired. So these tall, ginger and blonde and blue-eyed Aryan tribes from Central Asia and Anatolia, which went by many names, including the Huns, whose ancient symbology included the swastika symbol and serpents, entered Europe in several waves, represented as a great dragon in many European myths and legends that had an appetite for cattle and young virgins, and in many cases established themselves as royalty and nobility. blue-eyed people from the Middle East migrated into Europe, many of whom have ancestors today that have no clue about their own Central Asian or Middle Eastern origins, thinking that they're fair-haired and light-eyed Europeans sprouted out of the ground the same way that people in modern India think that their upper caste nobility, known as Aryans, were always there and never rode in on their horses, introducing Sanskrit, the swastika, and the ethnic caste system thousands of years ago, which they certainly did. Geneticists, having compared mitochondrial DNA from blue-eyed individuals in diverse countries such as Jordan, Denmark, and Turkey, concluded that people with blue eyes have a single common ancestor that lived by the Black Sea, spreading out from there during the Holocene, along with domesticated animals, agricultural civilization, and the Aryan language family. Princess Skata, ancestor of the Gaels, was also known as Meritaten, a daughter of King Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti, and sister of King Tut, who were all part of the Hyksos dynasty of Egypt. In Egyptian, Hyksos means foreign rulers, and they introduced the horse, chariot, and bronze medal to the African continent, as well as Aten worship, which is considered the first form of monotheism. They entered Egypt via the Middle East, starting from Anatolia. The Scythians were blonde and red-haired and had blue eyes, just like many of the Egyptian statues. These same Indo-European Aryans, who were the Hyksos pharaohs, were not only linked to the Phoenicians, but were also the Knights Templar, the people who conducted the Crusades, which were a series of wars by Europeans to recover the Holy Land from Muslims in the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries, and carved stone churches out of rock in Lalibela, Ethiopia, including swastikas and Star of David symbols with the Templar cross in the middle of it. It has also been suggested by many authors that the noble bloodlines of the biblical Israelites were synonymous with the Hyksos pharaohs, associated with serpent symbolism, which ties into the legend of St. Patrick, who drove the snakes out of Ireland, since Ireland never had snakes during the entire Holocene, and before that was covered by a mile of ice. It's clear the snakes represented Druids.
They're currently calling themselves Druidic or Druid, and Druidism is tied in with the cycles of the moon, and there's a lot of ritualization with Druidism, and they love ritualization.
The Druids were the Scythian royalty, and this bloodline were also known as dragons, portrayed as a dragon or serpent in many European myths and legends. This dragon symbolism can be seen in Transylvania, where we find Dracula, which translates into dragon, who incidentally Prince Charles claims he's genetically related to. As for the Druids, their kings were called Pendragons, as they were in the Middle East, and can be traced back to Anatolia, where they were also the Proto-Sumerian ancestors venerated by the Germanic secret societies, such as the Vril and Thule Society, and who also left mummified remains in China, known as the Tocharians, near massive pyramids in China, which are either ignored or purposely hidden by the communist Chinese government, who know the truth of where their first emperors, swastikas, and dragon symbolism really stems from. The swastika symbol and star known as the Seal of Solomon or David are found side by side in antiquity, such as the archaeological ruins of the Temple of Jupiter in the Phoenician city of Baalbek, the serpent culture stretching from Ireland to India, and even deeper into the Far East, Asia, and Japan.
the Aryans originally were from Mars, and the reptilians wanted to mix, so they said, with that race. They then went to Earth, and the reptilians became involved in the religion and using the gods and deities that were believed in on this planet, started infiltrating into that and becoming that.
When you look at some of the ancient accounts, like the Sumerian texts and many other accounts, they talk about the gods interbreeding with humanity.
Human beings all through the ages have accepted gods interbreeding or being accepted as humans, and that shows in Christianity, it shows in Judaism.
Who are they, the interbreeders? As I traveled around the world, I came across increasingly large numbers of people who told me this recurring story from different points of perspective, and many of them who'd experienced it, a quote on the inside, that this interbreeding was between a reptilian type race and humans, and they had created a hybrid bloodline. And it was this bloodline that was occupying the positions of power across the world.
Sierra Leone, Africa, the early 1990s. Rebels began forcing villagers to mine so-called blood diamonds. But from deep within the earth emerges a vast treasure they weren't expecting. They discover mysterious figures ranging from 5 to 10 inches tall, often with reptilian or amphibian features, known as Nomoli.
They are humans and human figures with lizard heads. There are hundreds of them.
According to legend, the Nomoli represent sky gods. When they fell from the heaven, part of the sky turned to stone and rained down with them.
The way, as my father told me, and it was told to him by his father, my grandfather, and passed down, the star people came from the Seven Sisters. The Seven Sisters being what we call the constellation of the Pleiades. The Seven Sisters and also the Warrior's Belt, which we know today as Orion. And the star people would come, they made themselves out to be gods because they had power, they had big medicine, like our people say. They were able to do great feats that the people were just astonished by. And so they took them to be gods because that's what they presented themselves to be. In that manner is how they then went and took the women from the different tribes.
When the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. So this group of fallen angels married human females, and they had half-breed children with them. These mighty men of old were real, not just because we read it in the Bible, but because it's mentioned in many other ancient writings as well, in other cultures. Demigods, those are the children of God, supposed gods, and humans. And we have these stories of these mixed breeds from all cultures over all the world. In Hindu mythology, Mayan, Native American, Irish, Polynesian, Roman, African, Sumerian, and others. These people worshipped these fallen angels and their half-breeds as gods. Some ancient writings say that this certain group of fallen angels who came down and married the women of the earth, they had viper, snake-like faces. So you can just imagine how these mixed breeds that they created look like. The old Gnostic writings describe them as having long, protruded chins, high cheekbones, elongated skulls, and slanted eyes. And we see this in the art that they drew, even thousands of years later. Take a look at this Egyptian art from Queen Nefertiti and Pharaoh Akhenaten. They still have these snake-like faces. From different cultures, we also see these different serpent, lizard-looking gods with wings.
There are particular bloodlines that have been bred from the ancient world, hybrid bloodlines, you might call them, and they are the ones throughout history that have turned up as the kings, the queens. This is the divine right to rule. You know, the special bloodline. They say, you know, I have a right to rule because of my bloodline, because of my genetic heritage.
Wherever the bloodlines go, the empires go, because they're acquisitive, they want control. So you had the Roman Empire when they were based in Rome, and they're still massively based in Rome. And when they went and located in London, you had the British Empire and that expansion and other parts of Europe. London eventually became, and still is, one of the epicenters of the Illuminati, of these bloodlines. And that is two reptilian figures holding the badge of the Knights Templar, one of the major secret societies of the Illuminati. There's a bigger version of it. When you enter the City of London, you pass these things on the side of the road. And a lot of the gargoyles that you find on churches that were built by the secret society, as like the Knights Templar, and the castles of these elite families have a reptilian look about them. So do many of the coats of arms and stuff that you find in the elite families and military and stuff. As Credo Mutwa, the Zulu shaman, told me, a lot of the black political or black leaders and prime ministers that were put in positions of power after the colonial powers apparently left, their bloodline went back to the same source, according to him. In the East, in places like Japan and China, where there was also massive interbreeding, you have the dragon at the very heart of the culture. In fact, the ancient emperors of China used to claim the right to be emperor because of their descendants from the serpent gods. When I started coming across this, I then went to South Africa to speak, and I got contacted. This is why he contacted me originally, Credo Mutwa. And he said, how do you know about the Chitauri? Because he just read the book, The Biggest Secret, which was the first time I introduced this. Who the hell's the Chitauri? And it translates as the children of the serpent or the children of the python. And this is a painting by Credo Mutwa from ancient and modern descriptions of these Chitauri, although it's only one type. Just like with humans, there's many types. This is the necklace of the mysteries, which he, as the inheritor of this shamanistic knowledge, has the right to be given. And he reckons it's at least 1,000 years old. He has symbols on this necklace of the mysteries which tell the story of Africa and African people and African history. And on pride of place is a non-human figure with a big willy and a woman, and this is their symbolism for telling the story of the interbreeding between humans and this non-human race. This is the human woman as symbolized, and this is the non-human interbreeder. Now, it doesn't look reptilian, it doesn't look like anything, it looks strange. And I asked him, why does it look like that? And he said, because the Chitauri said that they must never be depicted as they really are, or they would, anyone that did it would be killed. So he said what they did was depict them as obviously not human, but not looking like they really did for that reason. Although you still can find some. This is a reptilian baby and woman or goddess, which was found in graves in the Ubaid culture, which preceded Sumer in that same part of the world that we now know as Iraq. And around the world, you see symbolism of the connection between the human women and this reptilian race. You see the symbolism of part man, part reptile, part human, part not human.
Presently, they claim to come from the Merovingian bloodline. There are 13 bloodlines in Europe that all of what are called royalty are developed from or come from.
The Merovingian dynasty was the ruling family of the Franks from the middle of the 5th century until 751. Their royal bloodline emerging as the King of the Franks, whose name was first mentioned in 3rd century Roman sources, along with other Germanic tribes, stemmed from Scythians or Aryans that penetrated into Europe from Anatolia. And their ancient symbol was the dragon, which comes down to us in legends of invading dragons in European mythology. In regards to what Scythians say about their origins, Herodotus says that, quote, the Scythians' legend about themselves portrays the first Scythian king, Taygetus, as the child of the sky god and of a daughter of the Dnieper. The ancestral earth goddess of the Scythians was a dragon mother with serpentine legs. mistress of the celestial waters, who the Aryan warriors addressed their request to grant them victory in battle. According to the Scythians, and Sumerians for that matter, the king ruled as the chosen representative of the great dragon mother. In Greek mythology, Hercules was said to have been the progenitor of a whole race of serpent-worshipping Scythians through his intercourse with the serpent Echidna. She was half beautiful maiden and half fearsome snake who lived alone in a subterranean cave and gave rise to the lineage of Scythian kings. Which brings us back to the Merovingians, whose name is said to derive from Merovi, king of the Franks. According to the legend, Merovi had two fathers, King Clodion and a strange beast of the sea. The legend of King Merovi seems to conceal the true origins of the Merovingian race. Merovius derives from the French words mer, meaning sea, and ver, meaning werewolf or dragon. The Book of Revelation informs us that the dragon is the devil and Satan. This helps to explain the esoteric allusion to the Merovingians' progenitor, King Merovi, a king of France sired by a mysterious beast of the sea, and the claim that the Merovingian dynasty is of literally satanic descent.
Also, they have used the Egyptian religions a lot, and the present head of the Illuminati compares himself a lot with the Egyptian god Osiris and Horus, which is Osiris reborn, and also with the Arthurian legends of the Round Table, and the name that he carries from that is Pindar, which actually means phallus of the dragon. What they are doing with all of these bloodlines to keep the bloodlines going are impregnating people of Aryan blood that hold high stations with them, impregnating them with this seed of Pindar. Therefore, it's important to keep this history in mind and the names in mind that he is going by at this time.
So the Druid kings were descended from Scythian royalty and later became the Merovingian dynasty. The Merovingian rulers, like the patriarchs of the Old Testament, were polygamous, particularly with their own bloodline. This ancient use of polygamy in a royal family and occult sex magic is very ancient, as the Scythian line also stretches back into ancient Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia, as this same bloodline was not only that of the pharaohs, but also the Anunnaki, which means those of royal blood, or the serpent seed, or princely noble seed.
And there's been a big push in this century. For example, when Nazis came into power, the fascists, talking about the purity of the Aryan bloodline staying pure. And what it actually is all about is keeping the blue-eyed, blonde, or light red-haired people, the bloodlines pure, because what is in that blood for these reptilians is more powerful, and they need that. And when you start mixing it with people that were indigenous to this earth, then it is not as powerful. It has to do with keeping the bloodline pure for their use.
So would it be correct to say that the reptilians came to this planet because the Aryan Martians came to this planet, and that the Aryan Martians gone somewhere else that have followed them there?
They would have pursued them all over the universe, yes.
It's one of the most complex experiences that I'd had. It's when I made an agreement with them. I actually remember making an agreement with them. I'd been taken on board the craft, and the being, it's a mantid being, again, with a purple cloak, about 9 foot tall, walks straight up to me, looks down and puts his 2 hands on my shoulders and says, "Would you like to be like us, to have knowledge and understanding, to know the future and see the past?" But I never let him finish the sentence, because I'm so interested in the past and the future, I say, "Yes!" And as soon as I say that, his hand drops down off my shoulder, takes my right hand, and he says, "Then come with me." I realized that I had made an agreement. And I believe that what I gave the agreement to was for the right to have my soul taken out of my body, put into one of their bodies, and then to interact as one of them for a short period of time and experience what it's like to be an extraterrestrial of this faction, of this group. And then my soul is put back into my body. When they come, we have a job to do. I'm not like one of these people that they'll sit and talk to me about the future of the earth, etc. This is the role that you have with us. This is what you'll do.
And do you know what that is? Are you able to say?
Yeah,
what it is, or describe it?
Yeah, it's dead simple, because what they've said to me is I exist in 2 worlds.
Yes.
That's what they've said to me. You exist in 2 worlds, and your genetic material is able to survive in our world, we've been able to take your soul out of your body, put it in one of ours, and therefore we wish to make hybrids of your genetic material because they will last longer on the earth. Because up till very recently, hybrids don't last, they just don't last long. What the hybrid body will do is hold a soul, one of their souls or a human soul, and if it's viable, it can stay on the earth. When you have a soul, depending on what its importance to them is, there's some method of moving it into a body. When I've been on the Mantid mothership, I've said, this is spying on the earth, isn't it? And he says, yes, we share information. So that is with other with the reptiles particularly. And I should say that when they talk about the Earth government, they talk about America.
Is there then a national contract, say, with the American people? Or with
yes, that's why yes, they've said to me, that's why your government is the American government. We have the agreement with the American government. That's what they've said to me.
Oh, so they have a contract?
Oh, God, yeah.
So do we know what the agreement is from the American side?
I don't know, no. All I know is there's an agreement which is binding, both sides, and it allows them to do what they do.
Are we specifically talking or referencing abductions?
Oh, God,
genetic
yeah. Oh,
work?
absolutely. Oh, God, yeah, it's part of the deal.
Do they target specific elements of genetics? For example, Celtic has often been referenced in people who've been abducted.
They told me Celtic, what we call Romani or Gypsy, and Jewish. Because where the bloodline is not as diluted, where people have kept within their own groups, that's allowed them to be closest to the original humans, keeping it as pure as you can. So they come for that because those genetics were the genetics they worked with 5,000 years ago. This happens, it's true, and it's been happening for thousands of years. This is not new.
The role that I was brought through to play in the Illuminati was as a goddess Starfire, and the way that I was addressed was Mother Goddess. I was bred for this role that I fulfill, and it was planned from before my birth because of the bloodline of my mother's family, which comes down through Ireland, but before that began in France. So from the time that I was a baby, I was being abused and traumatized on purpose for the mind control that they need someone to go through to do whatever they say, to be as just a puppet, that they can control every move. There was a programmer that was programming me, a very infamous person in history who actually has been in this country, and he was known as Dr. Green. And I would be around this man a lot. Who he actually was Dr. Mengele, Joseph Mengele, from the concentration camps in Germany. And it was known by intelligence agencies in this country that this man was here. They brought him here.
Is that Project Paperclip you're talking about?
Yeah. Through the OSS. This programmer in particular, Mengele, would take me to rituals. I went to rituals with him all over this country and in Britain and in France.
So take us through one of these rituals that you conducted at the highest level of this global brotherhood. What would happen?
There were people that were bred from birth to be ritual sacrifices. Is said a lot today, especially by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, that how could all of these people, or how could all these babies disappear? And it's very easy not to register a child when it's born. And then they have these children that they're kidnapping and bringing in from other countries, and no one misses them because these are third world countries.
I know the system. I've been a spy all over the world. I have created the Marine Corps Intelligence Command. I have trained intelligence and law enforcement representatives, over 8,000 of them from across 66 countries. The totality of the children disappearing worldwide is toward 8 million a year. These children are not just kidnapped and in some cases bred by families as a cash crop. We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them. And when they are sold, they come without birth certificates, which means it's easier to kill them and have no one ask where they are. We're also importing children by the plane load. Again, children who have no documentation. It's not just child slavery or child sex abuse. It's also child torture because you have adrenalized blood. You have the whole blood drinking ceremony of the satanic world.
Children, they have the most energy, the purest energy. They're the highest form of sacrifice. And they will terrorize these children and mind control these children. And by the time they're brought into rituals, they may be drugged, or they may not be drugged, or they may be in an altered state because of the mind control. And they are used as actual blood sacrifices because of reptilians needing their blood.
3,000 years ago, in what is modern-day Lebanon, lived one of the most sophisticated people of the ancient world, the Phoenicians. According to the Greeks and Romans, wherever they settled, the Phoenicians brought with them both new advances and dark practices. By far the most terrifying allegation was child sacrifice.
It was a custom of the Phoenicians to give freely their best-loved children in sacrifice. Those given up were slaughtered in mystic rites.
The Phoenicians, it was said, sacrificed their children to appease their bloodthirsty gods, Baal Hamon and his wife, Tanit. Baal and Tanit took many forms. They could have an animal face or be human.
The blood helps them maintain their reptilian shape, and it helps them maintain their sanity, and it helps them to live in this world because they are not from this world.
Basically, when hybrids are being created, they look to be all right, but after a period of a few years, they'll just break down in the mind, and they have to be actually isolated and destroyed. It isn't that the body degenerates, their minds go. We would call it insanity. Well, it's fairly unpleasant.
They wear these robes, but they don't wear anything underneath the robes, because what is going to happen, what the rituals are all about, they're going to shapeshift. When the victims are starting to be sacrificed, it's the scent of the blood. They start shapeshifting at that point in time. They can hardly wait to get to the blood. It's like they're addicted to the blood, and then the consumption of human flesh that follows.
I'm going to tell you something a little bit different about the alien species. The bad news ones, to look at a human being as a bag of food. They use the glandular secretions as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland substances called adrenochrome. It's something like cocaine to them.
What is this shit? That stuff makes pure mescaline seem like ginger beer, man. Adrenochrome.
The blood, it has something in it. It has secretions from the pituitary gland and from the pineal gland, and it has a very strong drug in it. It's like heroin or like endorphins. But what they need for it to be secreted in the blood is they need terrorization of their victims before they are killed or before a young woman is beginning to menstruate. They need the menstrual blood. They have to terrorize them to get this to come out in the blood. And it's at that point they are actually staring into the eyes of this person, and it's a hypnotic gaze these reptilians have. It holds the victim in a trance of terror, and then they are killed at that moment as they are staring into their eyes, and they can't hold their shape when this happens.
The human shape.
The human shape they cannot hold. It's like an animalistic type of excitement of the kill. And they oftentimes, they will just rip into the victim and eviscerate them and start eating the flesh of this person too. And they will take various organs from the sacrifices depending on what the ritual may be associated with on that date. They will also slit the throat from the left ear to the right ear, and the blood will be gathered in a goblet, and it will be dispersed among the reptilians. And it goes according also to rank within these creatures as to who gets what when. And after that, among people that are participating in these rituals, and even though they seem to be dissociated, mostly these people seem to be cognizant of what they are doing.
Why don't these reptilians just conduct their own rituals?
They don't seem to have the psychic abilities, and they look for people in the bloodline that have that. And I have had that. I've had a tremendous amount of psychic ability. They needed the psychic abilities because they control or attempt to control events, because I would have the ability to foretell what was going to happen. They needed the information to try to control it to an outcome that was good for them. The second thing is that during the rituals, you had to have psychic ability. You have to be very powerful in that way to call out the old ones that are also reptilian, that come from another dimension. They materialize from out of another dimension and are present at rituals. And they are so powerful, and their presence is, there's such an evilness about them, and they want out of this other dimension, the fourth dimension. They have to be called out by someone who has that power, and that's very important, that they don't have this power to call out these old ones that have to do with them. We have the ability to become vibrationally higher and see into those levels, go into those levels. And in fact, agencies use this, they call it remote viewing. Humans have the ability to go into the past, to go into the future, to go to other places, to leave their body astrally. During a ritual, these old ones are called out, and they are what Christianity would have called the demons. There is a circle that has a hexagon in there, which is a powerful occultic symbol. And then there is a pentagram. And in the middle of that, there is a triangle. And if you're the one calling them out, then you stand in the triangle so that you're not devoured or taken by these creatures that come out.
Many years ago, I was being interviewed on the Lou Epton show in Las Vegas. He had a major top show in Las Vegas, and that was a 2-hour show back in '88. I brought up the subject of the reptile aliens and my belief about the reptile aliens and what the ancient peoples of the ancient world, the Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Phoenician Canaanites, the Egyptians, all the ancient peoples of the world talked about the reptile aliens. That I think that there are reptile aliens here. I've heard too many stories, and then I told some of the stories that I had heard. Well, after the program, I got a phone call from a guy who's, later on I found out, is an extremely wealthy businessman in Las Vegas. He buys and sells hotels and commercial properties in Vegas, and he was the biggest there. And he said to me, he said, Jordan, we listened to Lou Epton. We love Lou Epton. So in the office in the mornings, we listened to Lou Epton. But this morning, when you came on, we got so interested in listening to you that everybody just kind of quit work for a little bit and was listening to you. And he says, and when you mentioned the reptile aliens, it shocked us. And he said, I'm a Christian, and I have 5 men who work for me in my office, and they're Christians. We all go to the same church, and we were hearing you today. And he said, when you mentioned reptile aliens, I had to call you and tell you, we're Christians, but every year we go somewhere in the world on vacation, and my company pays for everything. All 6 families go together on a vacation somewhere. This was like in '88, so he's talking about '87. And he said, last year we decided to go camping for a couple of weeks in Colorado. And he says, we were up in the mountains, and we broke camp one morning, and we walked up to the top of this mountain to look over the lay of the land. Out in the valley, we could see that there had been an area that had been cleared away. It was like a round area that had been cleared away. And there was a circle of people out there, and they were all wearing robes, and they were all holding hands and swaying back and forth, singing and chanting. And there was obviously somebody in the middle, like a priest or something in the middle. And he said, this is out in the middle of nowhere, that these people are here with this thing that they're doing. And he said, we're up here in the mountains looking down on them. While we were standing there looking at them, all of a sudden, a second figure popped up out of nowhere. But it was bigger than the man that was in the middle. It's in the middle too, but it's much bigger. And it pointed up at us. And he said, and all the singing stopped, everybody stopped and pointed. And he said, we knew we'd been had. And he said, so we figured we better just get out of here. And he said, when we turned around, it was standing behind us. That thing which was down there was already behind us. That's how quick it moved. He said, when we turned around to run, there was a reptile alien standing behind us. He said this thing was at least 7 to 7.5 foot to maybe 8 foot tall, had a reptile male man's head, but it was a reptile head, extremely muscular, and he said, and it was looking at us, and he said, it cast some kind of a spell on us so that no one could move. We were like frozen. And he said we were staring at it, and it was looking at us, but it had control over us. It had locked us so that we couldn't move, we couldn't scream, we couldn't do anything. And he said, and this thing was gazing at all of us, looking at the children, looking at the women. He said, this reptile alien, and he says, we're just Christians, but we saw a reptile alien. This thing was not of this world. And then he said it looked at the men, and the look he gave us, we understood. He didn't say anything, but we knew. He was saying, I'm going to leave you alone, but when I leave here, you better get out of here. And he said the alien walked over like he was leaving, is gone. Just like they was gone. The moment he was gone, everyone came back to life. And the babies were screaming, the women were yelling, and he says, we ran like we were totally out of our minds, running back to the cars. We ran down the hill, got in the cars, and the women were screaming. Then we drove back, and he said it was the most incredible, horrible experience. All the guys in my office will tell you, we saw a reptile alien in Colorado. When I hear tales now about people who have seen reptile aliens, I got to tell you, there's 6 families here. We all belong to the same church, and I will guarantee you, we saw one.
Why do the reptilians want to manifest these, quote, demons?
It brings power to the rituals. It brings power to them. They are told things by these entities, and they are encouraged to go on with what they're doing, and knowledge is imparted to them through these entities.
To help you make sense of the information so far, let's do a quick recap. We live on a planet that supports life for 3rd density beings, us humans. Reptilians are 4th density beings who cannot survive on the Earth for an extended period, but it seems that they wish to do so. In order to live on the Earth, they created hybrid bloodlines by breeding with humans that are compatible with their DNA, the Aryan race. A reptilian soul can inhabit a hybrid body in order to live on the Earth for a longer time. The majority of hybrids live underground, but the ruling class live among us. Throughout history, they appeared as demigods, kings, and queens, spreading across the earth through conquest. They appeared in folklore as dragons, naga, mermaids, vampires, shape-shifting druids, and more recently, skinwalkers. Interbreeding has kept the bloodlines pure for thousands of years, and the purest of them have the ability to shapeshift. In order to retain their sanity, they must consume a chemical that is released into the blood of terrorized humans. They have created a human trafficking supply chain which provides them with an endless supply of humans, particularly children, to be used as sacrifices. To see evidence of this claim, please watch these videos. The hybrids have an agenda on planet Earth, and behind the scenes they are all working together to pursue it. In order to fulfill it, they must collaborate with their kin in higher densities. They can contact their higher density kin through rituals which allow them to be summoned into physical form. These higher density reptilians are the demons spoken of throughout history in cultures from all around the world. They feed on the energy or souls of other beings, and so they too demand sacrifices. Modern-day Satanism is in fact a means for contacting higher density, negatively aligned beings, and is largely practiced by hybrids. All of this is true for negatively aligned reptilians, but it's important to realize that not all reptilians are negatively aligned. Just as we have good humans and bad humans here on planet Earth, there are also positively aligned reptilians who have gone above and beyond to help mankind. They have no interest in ruling or being worshipped and are not present on our planet. They can communicate with humans through various means, including through snakes, which is why snakes have been worshipped throughout history as gods, teachers, and healers.
This is not limited to one area or one geography on the planet. Literally across the planet, this has been there. Even in places where there has not been much serpent population, even there, the Naga veneration and serpent worship has been there. If one becomes very meditative, the first creature which is drawn towards meditativeness is snake. This is the reason why you always see sages and seers, if there are images, snakes are around.
Serpents at one time were seen as the holders of esoteric knowledge, as attested to by the ancient Greeks, Egyptians, Chaldeans or Mesopotamians, people of India, Asia, and of course, the Phoenicians. Even Jesus is said to have referred to serpents as wise. In the formation of Christianity, various Gnostic sects were labeled as heretical, as they emphasized spiritual knowledge, or gnosis, of what they interpreted as the divine light within.
Mysticism and snakes cannot be separated. Whatever part of the world, whatever the culture, whatever religious backgrounds, where there's an exploration or experience of mysticism, there will be snakes in abundance. The reason why it has earned that symbolic status is the beings who are of celestial nature, beings who are in consciousness and capability superior to what is human nature, have always chosen to take the form of snake whenever they are here in this dimension of existence. This is an experience you can trace back into every mythology on the planet. These mystical snake forms are not imagined, they are a reality in another dimension. Those beings who wish to enter this dimension of existence have always chosen snake as a form because of various advantages that snake has, because it has such a sense of perception that it is able to perceive certain dimensions which human beings are longing to know. Human beings are desperate to know.
Barbara Lamb.
I know Barbara well.
Is a very lovely lady.
Yeah, very.
Who is a counselor and a supporter to many people who've had very strange ET experiences. And she told me how a reptilian alien had appeared out of nowhere in her bedroom and had silently held her hand for 2 minutes before it disappeared again, looking into her eyes, communicating with her that it was friendly. And it had been specially bred to interact with humans to give them the message that not all reptilians were hostile and meant harm. And this was this being's purpose, and it communicated with Barbara in that way.
Many energetic forms of Nagas were created and left loose in this cosmos. We do not know who created them, definitely not human beings, but they are floating around in the cosmos and doing their own thing.
Beyond the third density, positively aligned beings and negatively aligned beings do not live together as we do here on planet Earth. So the good and bad reptilians should be seen as separate entities. To learn more about evolution and alignment, and to learn what is necessary for humanity now, please watch Humanity's Final Hour. Our world has been influenced deeply by both positively aligned and negatively aligned reptilians. Unfortunately, it's only the negatively aligned who have infiltrated our world with hybrids, and only they who conduct rituals.
They were the kings and the queens and the aristocracy. And then when the people started rebelling against this over-in-your-face dictatorship by royal bloodline and inheritance, then these bloodlines moved into the dark suit professions of politics, of banking, of corporation leaders, etc. Media owners, big pharma, pharmaceutical cartel, the biotech cartel. These bloodlines control all of those things. Can we talk about some of the famous names that people around the world would know who, in your experience, have taken part in these rituals that you've conducted?
At rituals, I have seen George Bush, Madeleine Albright, Henry Kissinger, Ronald Reagan, his wife, Nancy Reagan. I have seen Hillary Clinton before I knew she was Hillary Clinton. I have not seen Hillary Clinton actually shapeshift. The other people that I have named, I have seen shapeshift into reptilians. I have seen the two sons of George Bush, when they were young, present at these rituals.
Are these the sons that have become governors?
Yes, one is in Florida and one is in Texas. Did I mention Jay Rockefeller? He shapeshifts. I've seen George Deukmejian and Ronald Reagan again, having been governor in California. I don't vote. All of these people seem to all be connected, and I don't feel like having anything to do with them.
All the presidents, with the exception of one, share the same grandfather.
Thomas Jefferson.
11-year-old Bridget Dovigneau says she's made a first-of-its-kind discovery that President Obama and all the presidents before him, with the exception of one, are related and descendants of a former king of England.
No, they are all cousins,
I
and
see.
they're grandsons of John Lackland.
Bridget traced all of the presidents back to King John of the House Plantagenet, according to the legend that's still being circulated today. The Plantagenets were descended from a demon, which served as an explanation of their ferocity and seemingly supernatural success on the battlefield. Donald Trump is related to King John as well, and it was discovered after Bridget's media blitz that Martin Van Buren's ancestry can be traced back to King John's mother. So that puts us at 100% of United States presidents who are tied back to the House of Plantagenet, which is interesting for such a small sample size. And if all U.S. presidents are somehow united in blood, does that mean our leaders are really elected by the people? Or does that mean they're selected by the few? Harold Brooks Baker often made comments about the British royal family to the press, in the propagation of his most royal candidate theory that presidents are selected, not elected, and specifically their selection is based on their pedigree. The candidate ascends to presidency because they are selected by their bloodline, a bloodline that can be traced back to House of Plantagenet.
Are there people in the Republican Party who think we're sucking the blood out of kids?
I'm not sure. Are there people in the Democratic Party who want to...
Mr. President!
No, I'm not a poor baby. I'm more reptilian, cold-blooded, and go in to win the election.
Presidents like Carter and Ford and Clinton.
I've seen Ford there.
Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford. I haven't seen Carter shapeshift.
You've seen him at rituals, haven't you?
Yes, Gerald Ford, I have seen shapeshift, and Lyndon Johnson. Also, Dr. Joseph Mengele, who took me around to these rituals a lot of the time, was also a shapeshifter. There were also people in the European countries that I've seen shapeshift and be involved. And it doesn't surprise me any more than it does the people in this country doing it. It's just for some reason more shocking, and it cuts even deeper. Because I've seen the Queen Mother there, and I have seen the Queen there. I've seen Princess Margaret there. I've seen Charles there, and they shapeshift. I have seen, I'm not coming up with his name right now, but he was president in France after de Gaulle. He was there. I've seen the Rothschilds there. I used to see the Rothschild that lived in England there. But the one that still goes there and is a shapeshifter is Baron Guy de Rothschild. He has been to all of these rituals and has been over in this country under the name of Dr. Barrington. I have seen Tony Blair there, and he shapeshifts. I have seen Prince Philip there. I have even, since I've seen a picture of some people that are talking about this subject, when I've seen their pictures, I recognize them. I did a double take a few weeks ago when I saw again someone who's been talking about around this subject, and it seems to be popular right now. This man by the last name of Sitchin, I've seen at rituals, and he is a shapeshifter. There's another person that I've seen, Sir Lawrence Gardner, and he had recently written an article that was out in Nexus magazine. Part of it was about the menstrual blood. This man I have seen, he has lots of power within this sect of reptilians, and he's someone that you would want to watch out for outside of this too, as is this Sitchin person.
What do you remember about Zecharia Sitchin?
Zecharia Sitchin was someone in attending the rituals who was not a major player as far as the rituals went, but was someone that others present did not make remarks at or were very careful as to what they said around him. And he would be talking about doing away with persons that were in his way or were putting out information that he didn't feel that he wanted put out. He is very much a disinformer, and that is his job, to disinform about what is going on with the Illuminati and with the reptilians. They all have their quirks as to how they act, even in their reptilian form. They don't act all like robots, but they have their quirks. They have their so-called personalities, but they are all cold-blooded. They would kill at the drop of a hat.
This notion to integrate young leaders is part of the World Economic Forum since many years. When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, Vladimir Putin, and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
You have in 1993 been here for the first time as a global leader for tomorrow.
President Calderon selected in 1997 as a global leader for tomorrow.
Over 40, I'm out of young global leader of Davos. I finished it.
Božidar Jelic, Deputy Prime Minister for European Integration and Minister of Science and Development of Serbia and a young global leader.
The leader of the UK right now. David Cameron was named a young global leader in 2006.
What we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. Yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. I mean, with the president.
My commitment will be to add value. We'll be part of the Young Leaders Initiative.
Mrs. Merkel, Tony Blair, even President Putin. They were all young global leaders.
Mamuka Bakadze, Prime Minister of Georgia and a young global leader.
Prime Minister of Ireland, Leo Varadkar, one of our young global leaders.
Monsieur De Croo, vous avez été Young Global Leader du Forum économique mondial.
Minister Mohammed Lutfi, the Minister of Trade of Indonesia and a young global leader.
A young global leader, Minister Joly.
Gavin Newsom, Mayor of San Francisco. He is also among those young global leaders here.
Juan Carlos Pinzón Bueno, Minister of the National Defense of Colombia, young global leader.
Chrystia Freeland, the Minister of International Trade of Canada, used to be a young global leader of the World Economic Forum.
Haakon is the Crown Prince of Norway. He's also a member of our Young Global Leaders alumni community.
Sheikh Hamdan is the highest government authority in the Emirate. His Highness is also a young global leader of the World Economic Forum.
But in addition to the young global leaders, we have now the global shapers in 450 cities around the world.
We're young. We can tell politicians how things really are 10 years further, and we're all running countries or huge companies or whatever.
The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. Therefore, it is so essential for us in the room to listen directly to you.
And it wasn't until I became a politician that I realized how nasty, how mean, how vicious, and how fake the press can be as the cameras start going off in the background. But
Chinese.
Can we buy a Chinese firm?
No, not right now.
Then why should they buy one of ours?
Why not?
Because we can't buy one of theirs. Open up the market.
Very, very well.
Yes, Clarice.
We have capitalism and we embrace it. And we have capitalism and we embrace it. And we have capitalism and we embrace it. And they don't.
I may scale, but this is the real reason why I don't show my face. Alright, look. See? See, I got real Illuminati bloodline. I watch there. See that? Shit, that get my identity hidden, man. Fuck you think they gonna do if they see me with this shit? I'm gonna kill my ass.
other end, Angelina's going to have a long, healthy life. And so will George Bush and Nicole Richie.
If you're not already bipolar.
I hear yelling in the booth. Are they yelling at me for the way I read that?
You did great.
Talking with teenagers and students about Anna and the other kids I met in Latin America, and so far it's been really inspiring.
And not unpleasant. I mean,
well, we'll change all that.
No, we're not going to change that.
Oh, please. All right.
Well, I met with my job. I work for UNICEF, which is an amazing organization that works in over 150 countries. And my job was to meet with teenagers who were living in exclusion, who were living in extreme poverty, or living with HIV, and write their stories, listen to their stories, and write them for UNICEF. And so, I obviously learned so much from these kids. I learned from Anna in particular, who has lived an extremely difficult life. I learned to live each day to its fullest.
Doing any kind of missionary work, I think, really changes a person. And you and your sister had a little bit. You guys weren't Paris Hilton, but you had a little bit of a reputation as party girls. Do you think this changed you?
So it didn't change my personality necessarily, but I taught for 2 years after the University of Texas after graduating, and then went on to Latin America. And of course, I've grown up. It's been 7 years, and people had that image of me. But yeah, listening to their stories was incredible.
Jenna, when you see this, when you not only listen to their stories, but you get involved and you write about it as well, does it change how you look? You're thinking about how government should run.
About a week ago, I sold my soul.
It didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
With the chief commander.
On this earth?
And then this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
And just right now, I'm realizing that I signed my soul. I sold my soul to the devil. I signed myself to the devil.
I'm really kind of shy, and not really shy, but more reserved, and nothing like Sasha. I guess I wouldn't be very entertaining on the stage, so Sasha comes out, and she's fearless. She can do things that I cannot do when I'm in rehearsal. I can try, but then it just doesn't happen. I can sing notes and sing strong and do all these things that when I'm just by myself, I can't do. And I remember right before I performed, I raised my hands up, and it was kind of the first time I felt something else come into me.
Roman is a crazy boy who lives in me, and he says the things that I don't want to say. He was born, just a few months ago. I think he was born out of rage. He threatens to beat people, and he's violent. I ask him to leave, but he can't. He's here for a reason.
While we see the body within this five-sense reality, actually overshadowing the body is a series of electromagnetic energy fields. People call it the auric field. And these entities are, in effect, electromagnetic in nature. And they operate outside of human sight, just as the human aura does for most people. And what these entities do, because they're electromagnetic, they lock in to us at that electromagnetic level. And this is what possession is. They don't possess the body. They possess the electromagnetic field, and through that they possess the actions and perceptions of the body. You can have people, for instance, who are locked into this possession, who will act quite normal and all the rest of it, and you think, oh, he's a nice bloke and all the rest of it. And then this possessing entity will then, at another time, will impose itself upon that person's reality, and they will transform in their perceptions of everything.
You look at her. She's so sweet. She's sweet to kids, I swear. I like her hair.
Hey, why you don't never just talk for yourself? Why you always talk through your familiar? Oh, you supposed to give them the orders. They don't supposed to give you the orders. You the controller. I got 10,000 names like none.
I know.
Yeah, at my command. I got 10,000 angels in here with me right now, at my command. I sacrifice for this shit, though. It's hard. That's a hell of a journey. Everybody know what it take. Everybody ain't willing to do what it take.
That's enough.
Yes, Lord.
Aw, sex a little. Take your shirt off. No, keep it off. Oh, you're cute.
That motherfucker silly. That motherfucker makes sense for 1 minute, then go back being silly.
Ugh, I know she does.
I command you.
Ugh, you're good. Don't say command.
Why I can't? I get orders. I'm in charge. I'm over 3,000 years old. I'm up in rank. Here. Don't you run from me. I want your soul.
They created Christianity to be what it is. And so they also have created this Satan. And so they control in that way.
A number of therapists have sent me pictures. This is a common theme. Therapists working with satanically abused people, trying to get their minds back after all this abuse, and sexually abused people that have been in these mind control projects. And it's a very consistent theme that when these people who've been victims of this, they use a lot of drawing to try to draw out their memories. Again and again, what they draw are people with reptilian eyes. These are actually drawn by a satanically abused person.
Chris Brown, he believes in UFOs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Why do you believe?
Because I'm an alien.
Why?
Because I'm an alien.
Explain.
I can't explain.
Do you...
I've talked to Satanists and victims of Satanists, grown up into adults when I spoke to them, but children brought up in satanic families. And they describe how during the day, their parents, who are absolutely rabid practicing Satanists, are pillars of society. They're in this and they're in that, and everyone thinks, oh yes, they're a pillar of society. And then at night, they're completely transformed.
So what they're doing in effect is using the secret society network they've set up to manipulate these bodies into power. But in doing so, they're putting themselves into power because they're controlling the mental and emotional processes of these vehicles.
If you're not sure you're ready to meet God, why don't you pray with me? The Bible says, prepare to meet your God. And I'll lead you in a prayer right now where you will be preparing yourself, getting ready, getting right with God. Let's pray now. Lord Jesus, I believe you died on the cross and paid the price for my sins and rose again from the dead. Now come and live inside of my heart. Be my Savior. Be my God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
The Reverend Franklin Graham. Thank you for joining us tonight, Reverend.
First, I want people to know that I am a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want people everywhere to know about God's Son who came to this earth to take our sins and died on a cross, who rose again. I want you to know that, and every viewer. God loves us, and He wants us to be saved from hell. And that's, listen, there is a hell, and that there's a punishment for those that reject God and His salvation, Jesus Christ.
Today, men and women in this world are looking for a leader. They're looking for someone who can make the pain go away, who can put the money back in their portfolios, who can give them a sense that maybe their children will be all right in the next generation. And as many of you know, they care not about the nature or the heart of the leader as long as he can deliver on his promise. The New World Order is all about the consolidation of power. That's what it's all about. It's about bringing everybody together so that one person can control everything. That only works if the one person is Jesus Christ.
drug-dealing criminal operation. We have to take it back. We have to decriminalize drugs right now to cut off the drug money.
One of the things that I learned from whistleblowers, from the cabal itself, is that they have to work within something they call the rules. And this is very, very important. The rules are a body of spiritual principles that they must follow in order to be allowed to exist. Now, what do I mean by allowed to exist? I mean that they are aware that there are benevolent forces that will prevent them from achieving their goals unless we give them permission to enslave us. The rules state that they have to tell us what they're doing. Therefore, if we allow it to happen, we have consented to tyranny, we have consented to enslavement.
Let me talk for a few moments about entertainment. In the ancient world, in the ancient European world, was a Druidic system. And one of the most important symbols in that European Druidic system was a magic wand. Like Merlin, the magician with his magic wand, we're always waving the magic wand. The same idea as today with the orchestra leaders who have the magic wand. And of course, you play to their tune. They're the boss. They have the magic wand. Was always a Druidic symbol for power, a magic wand. Magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It was made out of Hollywood. Hollywood does three things. They tell you what your masters have done in the past, what they're doing now, and what they're getting ready to do. That's what Hollywood is there for, to tell you the history and where you are now and where you're going. That's Hollywood, Druidic system of entertainment. That's what Hollywood is there for, to tell you the history.
It's been going on longer than recorded history. Officially sanctioned Natural History 101, that is. We've always been hopelessly outnumbered by humanity, had to find ways to blend in. First, it was easy. Sometimes we even had it good. China, of course, was always a breeze, obviously. But Europe was another story. We let our guard down for a few centuries and we paid the price. So we went back to the drawing board, perfected our disguises, parchment, paper, the finest Corinthian leather. Then it was plastics. Today we've got solid holograms 50 years beyond what the apes can dream of. Project the photons and in a millisecond, comes solid disguise.
That's what Hollywood is there for, to tell you where you are now.
They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of snakes is under their lips. Their mouths are full of bitterness and curses. They have taken the hearts and minds of our leaders. They have recruited the rich and the powerful, and they have blinded us to the truth. The human spirit is corrupted. Why do we worship greed? Because outside the limit of our sight, feeding off us, perched on top of us from birth to death, are our owners. Our owners. They have us. They control us. They are our masters. Wake up. They're all about you, all around you.
I've got one that can see.
Imagine a world where information can't be trusted. Not very hard, is it? News service says one thing, website says another. Society starts to fray. All we can turn to are the people we care about. But what if those people weren't who we thought they were? What if the ones closest to us, the ones we've trusted our whole lives, were someone else entirely? What if they weren't even human?
What exactly are you talking about?
Chaos. And that's only the beginning. You realize that the entire world is at war?
The atmosphere has been tense.
There is an architect to that tension.
So you think the same people are behind all of this?
Not people. Skrulls. Can't you see it? All these groups, they're the same. Skrulls could be anybody, anywhere, at any time. There could be thousands of them, tens of thousands, and you would never know.
Mikey?
Ja, man, ich Heißstadt, Kopfström.
Everything they teach you in school is a lie. You want the truth? The world is controlled by shadowy elites and shape-shifting lizard people.
So the song Shake It Off was about how I shed my skin every 1,000 years. And the song Bad Blood was about how I drink blood out of my Grammys.
A toast to blood!
America, take a good look at your beloved candidates. They're nothing but hideous space reptiles. It's true. We are aliens. But what are you going to do about it?
Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
That's what Hollywood is there for, to tell you where you're going.
Carol Danvers and Nick Fury promised to find them a new planet. But now they don't want just any planet. They want ours.
We will wipe the vermin from the surface and reclaim our planet.
Do we have to say vermin?
Primitive apes.
Extraordinary species. You attack them, they'll fight back.
This land is ours.
Humans won't give up the planet.
So we destroy them.
You underestimate them.
You underestimate us.
An evil madman who has already conquered my world and now plans to conquer yours. If he is not stopped, he will open a doorway to your world and lead his army of Sleestak on a rampage across time and space.
You don't understand. Your world's gonna end.
We Reptoids have had a great decade. Thanks to propaganda in the media, we have made society more tolerant of our kind, from the Geico gecko to the shape of water. The world temperature is rising. The time is coming, brethren. Soon we shall fulfill the prophecy, overthrow humanity, and become the true rulers of the world!
The visitors are not our friends. They've come to rape our planet and kill us. They are not who they appear to be. This is not science fiction. This is what they are.
Carbon dioxide, fluorocarbons, and methane have increased since 1958. Earth is being acclimatized. They are turning our atmosphere into their atmosphere.
What do these things want, and why are they here?
Earth is just another developing planet. Their third world.
Deplete the planet, move on to another. They want benign indifference. They want us drugged. We could be pets. We could be food. But all we really are is livestock.
All hail President K!
We were once mankind. We were humanity. And now, we're no more than pests. Vermin. They came here to exterminate us. They're building some kind of breeding facility for those that survive. People that have defected say it's worse than hell. Humans becoming some kind of surrogate incubators for the alien young. They hack into our psyche, into our minds, paralyzing us, taking control of the cerebrum and the limbic system, rendering us as slaves.
Their sacrifices have increased. It started increasing in the early 80s.
Have you any idea why it's increased since the 80s?
There are changes going on in the earth. It seems they're not able to hold their shape like they once were able to. And people see them shapeshift more and more. And they need the blood to try and maintain their human form. I believe there's a time coming, because of what I've been told, when they are going to establish themselves openly as a new world order. They are not going to bother having to hold that human shape as they had to before. And they want that time to come. It's almost upon us.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there.
The United States was, and now it is again, on what I would call an intentional trajectory to fulfill what famous Freemason Manly P. Hall described as the secret destiny of America, which includes a future national and global subservience to the god of Freemasonry, the so-called supreme architect, supreme judge of the world, and the divine providence perpetually viewed in notations that are in the Declaration of Independence and other founding documents, as well as the countless pagan icons that actually dominate the symbols, the statues, the buildings, the seals that were carefully drafted under official government auspices, the Great Seal of the United States, primary among them, which Manly P. Hall rightly called the signature of that exalted body of Masons who designed America for what he called a peculiar and particular purpose.
America was not named after Amerigo Vespucci, but after Amarica, an Incan word which is literally translated into land of the plumed serpent, another way of saying winged serpent, a symbol etched into the ancient stone of Egypt and Mesopotamia.
The Great Seal's mottos and symbolism relate to both Osiris and Apollo specifically, and yet as one. The phrase Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order of the ages, was adapted in 1782 from a prophetic line which reads Magnus ab integro seclorum nascitur ordo from Virgil's Eclogue 4, line 5. Now that phrase is from the Cumae Sibyl, a pagan prophetess of Apollo, identified in the Bible as a demonic deceiver, and it involves the future birth of a divine son spawned from a new breed of men sent down from heaven when he receives the life of gods and sees heroes with gods commingling. According to this prophecy, this is Apollo, the son of Jupiter, or Zeus. In the New Testament, the identity of the god Apollo, repeat-coded in the Great Seal of the United States as the Masonic Messiah who's going to return to rule the earth, is the same spirit, verified by the same name that will inhabit the political leader of the end times New World Order. The Great Seal of the United States is a prophecy hidden in plain sight by the Founding Fathers for more than 200 years, foretelling the return of a terrifying demonic god that seizes control of Earth in the new order of the ages. This supernatural entity was known and feared in ancient times by different names: Apollo, Osiris, and even farther back as Nimrod, whom Masons consider to be the father of their institution.
The Merovingian dynasty still maintains its legitimacy and, according to members of the organization, will one day openly assert the divine right of their nobility to rule the world as an angelic race of demigods whose ancestors, they claim, were the fallen angels.
Who is running this planet and what are they doing to the human race? Not just to America, but the whole human family on the earth is in serious jeopardy. The world we know is not going to be here much longer. What your masters have planned for this world, you have no idea in the world what's coming. This is very serious. You need to wake up.
The New World Order, the alien agenda is one and the same. It's world takeover and the decimation of the population of this planet. The killing off of 5, 6 to 7 eighths of the world's population to take the remaining human subjects as slaves, and the aliens would use this planet for their own means.
What is the overall agenda as
the overall agenda will be to repopulate the Earth with hybrids. That's the agenda. To repopulate the Earth at a time when the Earth doesn't have very many humans on it.
Is there an interest then in living on the planet?
Yes, if they can, yes.
Would you go so far as to say that it might be a takeover, or was this a...
No, because they would have done that by now. They're not allowed to do that because the law won't allow them. The greater law won't allow them. They've got to do it when they're either invited to do it, or the Earth is so depopulated that it doesn't matter anymore.
I was treating a patient who happened to be a head of state, and one day she rather casually said, you know, it's almost time for the great culling to begin. And I said, the what? And she said, culling, C-U-L-L. I said, I know the word, but what are you talking about? She said, the culling of the useless eaters. And I questioned that. I said, what's a useless eater? She said, not what, my dear, who? Those people who are consuming our natural resources. and laid out the plan for getting rid of everybody except, as she defined it, us, the neo-aristocrats in the neo-feudal system, surrounded by our servants and servitors, and below them our technicians, and that short pyramid requires only 10% of the current population. And she left, and she stimulated my thinking, and I had to know more about this useless eater business, and I had to know more about a widespread, cataclysmic, enormous genocide of almost the entire human population. So I began digging. And what I discovered was they were very serious. And first of all, this is batshit crazy. Second of all, it is well in place and has been in place for a very long time.
The Georgia Guidestones is a structure that was erected in 1980. A man using the pseudonym Robert C. Christian had the Elberton Granite Finishing Company erect these on behalf of a small group of Americans. The stones are covered in inscriptions written in 8 different modern languages and 4 different ancient languages: Babylonian, Classical Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. There are 10 guidelines.
There's been this plan, like we usually go to meetings on Wednesday in black cloaks, draw like a big star and a circle on the ground. We have like these cups of blood, drink it. It needs to be a golden cup.
Okay.
No silver. Oh my God, they hate silver. And we kind of like planned like world domination, like to make everyone gay and then like decrease the world population. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
We cannot hide away from human population growth. All these things we talk about wouldn't be a problem if there was the size of population that there was 500 years ago.
We are the first species on the face of this earth to be aware of evolution, to be aware that we are affecting our own evolution by everything that we do, the babies we eat, the food we eat, the wars we fight.
We as humans are going to be given a choice to either stay on this earth or spiritually evolve. And if enough of us want to spiritually evolve, this ain't going to happen. But if we don't, as a race, spiritually evolve and sort out our problems, then we are going to have some very difficult times.
Throughout history, the negatively aligned reptilian presence on planet Earth has been in control of government, military, religion, science, education, entertainment, and anything else that must be controlled in order to hide their presence, prevent us from learning the truth of our existence and of evolution, and prevent the positive development of mankind, all the while allowing them to progress silently towards their goal: the eradication and enslavement of humanity, and the seizure of our beautiful planet Earth. They have conquered and colonized us. They have murdered and silenced us. They brainwash and lie. They create our diseases. They jam poisons into everything we consume. They steal our children away from us to rape them and slaughter them. And they get away with it all because we humans are too naive to believe it could possibly be happening. But it is happening. And their goal is within arm's reach. And they are so desperate to conceal their existence because each and every one of us have the power to stop them, simply by saying no. Their very existence on our world is owed to us permitting it. So will you continue to permit their existence? Will you permit them to realize their goal? If this video hasn't truly convinced you of anything, then it's likely I need to show you more of the bigger picture. I have that picture painted out for you in a video called Humanity's Final Hour. I urge you to watch it. I urge you to share what you learn. I urge you to pursue the truth during this vital time. Remember, by not resisting their enslavement, you are choosing it, a choice that you will carry with you forever. For we are all everlasting.